You know, there is this incredibly common human experience. I think everyone listening to this has probably been there. You are walking from the kitchen to the living room. You cross the threshold, and like suddenly your mind just completely blanks.
You just absolutely stop in your tracks.
Exactly. You just stand there looking around, utterly bewildered by your own living room.
Right, yeah.
And usually, how do we react to this? We just laugh it off. We say, oh, I'm just getting old, or man, it's been a really long day.
And we brush it off.
We accept that sudden, frustrating blankness as just this quirky, unavoidable part of being a human being.
Yeah, a feature, not a bug.
Right. But what if that glitch is, well, what if it's not just a quirk? What if that momentary loss of purpose, that feeling of your thoughts moving through thick, sticky molasses, is actually a biological alarm bell ringing loudly in your head?
That is precisely where the conversation completely shifts today. We are moving away from viewing that mental blankness as a benign, unavoidable glitch, and really recognizing it for what it truly is, which is a
Right.
very real, very tangible biological warning sign.
So today, we are doing a deep dive into a stack of incredibly detailed notes and transcript excerpts from Gary Brecka's Ultimate Human series.
And it's a fascinating set of sources.
It really is.
Huh.
And our mission today is to deconstruct this pervasive modern cognitive cloud that so many of you are dealing with right now. We were talking about brain fog.
Yes, the dreaded brain fog.
We're going to prove to you that this is not, I repeat, not a normal consequence of aging. It is a measurable biological symptom, and more importantly, it can be systematically eradicated.
What's fascinating here is how these notes connect those vague, hard to describe feelings of forgetfulness directly to hard, measurable physiology.
Right.
We are taking something that feels purely psychological, or like you said, something we just blame on the calendar, and we're grounding it in the actual cellular machinery of the human body.
I love that. So to you listening right now, if you've ever walked into a room and forgotten why, or maybe you sat at your desk and felt like you just couldn't pull a simple everyday word out of your vocabulary, this deep dive is for you.
Absolutely.
Okay, let's unpack this. When we use the term brain fog, what are we actually talking about from a clinical perspective?
Well,
Because it's such an evocative term, right? A cloud. A cloud obscures things. The structures are still there, your memories are there, your intellect is there, but you just cannot see them through the mist.
that is actually a highly accurate way to visualize it. The cognitive machinery is totally intact, but the operational environment is compromised.
Okay.
According to the source material, brain fog is not like a single entity. It is a cluster of manifestations.
So it shows up in different ways for different people.
Exactly. We are talking about episodic confusion. We are talking about poor short-term recall,
Or get the
the walking into a room thing. Right, exactly. And also a profound lack of sustained focus. But here is the most crucial distinction made in our sources, and it's something we really need to establish right out of the gate.
Okay.
Brain fog is not a clinical diagnosis on its own.
Which means it's not the disease itself.
No.
It's the symptom. It's like it's the smoke, not the fire.
Precisely. It
Yeah.
is an indicator.
And
And the source notes explicitly warn against that trap we mentioned at the very beginning, accepting this as a natural consequence of aging.
Right.
The material states unequivocally it is not a consequence of aging.
Which honestly feels mind-blowing because that is just society's default excuse.
It really is.
Oh, I'm just getting older.
Yeah,
But when you think about it, accepting that is actually incredibly dangerous.
very dangerous.
Like brain fog is basically your body's check engine light.
Oh, I like that analogy.
Yeah.
Oh.
You wouldn't take your car to the mechanic and say, well, my diagnosis is a glowing red light on my dashboard, right?
Right, you'd sound ridiculous.
The check engine light isn't the actual problem. The light is just telling you there is a misfire under the hood. So why is the human instinct so quick to dismiss this critical warning light as simply, getting older?
Well, because the brain is an incredibly isolated organ, and importantly, it doesn't have pain receptors.
Wait, really? No pain receptors at all?
Right. If you injure your knee, it swells up, it turns red, and it shoots very clear physical pain signals up your leg. You literally cannot ignore it.
You limp.
Exactly. But when the brain's internal environment is under severe duress, it can't ache, it can't throb. One of the few ways it can signal that its metabolic processes are failing is by slowing down your cognitive output.
Wow.
The fog is the pain signal.
That makes so much sense. The fog is the brain's version of a limp.
Yes.
So if we've got this check engine light glaring at us, we need to figure out what is actually misfiring in the engine.
Well,
And looking at these notes, it seems the first major culprit is viral infections and the resulting inflammation.
yes. This is where the science gets incredibly specific. The source points to a significant study published in the Journal of Clinical Medicine, which looked really closely at patients recovering from viral infections.
Okay.
And they found this massive correlation between lingering brain fog, systemic inflammation, and immune dysregulation.
Let's break those mechanisms down because, systemic inflammation gets thrown around a lot in health articles.
It does. It's a bit of a buzzword.
Yeah. If I sprain my ankle, that's localized inflammation, right? The ankle swells, it gets hot, immune cells rush to that specific area to heal it. But systemic means this process is happening everywhere all at once.
Correct. When a pathogen, like a virus, enters your body, your immune system launches a massive counterattack. It releases these signaling proteins called cytokines.
Cytokines.
Think of cytokines as the biochemical distress flares of the immune system.
Okay, I can picture that.
They travel through your bloodstream, basically calling white blood cells to action. But in cases of systemic inflammation and immune dysregulation, the immune system essentially malfunctions.
How so?
It either overreacts during the infection or it just fails to turn itself off after the viral threat has been neutralized.
So the flares are just constantly going off.
Exactly. So you have these inflammatory cytokines constantly circulating in your blood.
And we are seeing this prominently in post-viral syndromes. Like the notes specifically mention this in the context of post-COVID-19.
Yes, they do.
They point to a study in Nature and Neuroscience that links these post-viral metabolic disruptions to severe cognitive impairments.
Yes, and to really understand how that happens, we have to look at the blood-brain barrier.
Right.
Normally, this barrier acts like a highly exclusive VIP velvet rope.
I love that. Bouncers at the club.
Right. It lets essential nutrients into the brain and strictly keeps toxins and pathogens out. But when your body is in a state of chronic systemic inflammation, the sheer volume of these inflammatory cytokines circulating in your blood can actually compromise that barrier.
So the velvet rope basically falls down.
But the rope falls down, the bouncers get overwhelmed, and those inflammatory proteins cross over into the brain's extremely delicate environment.
So what does this all mean for the listener? I want to make sure you listening can visualize exactly what this means for your day-to-day life.
Sure.
If you just had a standard flu or maybe a bout of COVID and a month later you can't concentrate at work, think of it like this. Imagine your body fighting a virus is a massive, chaotic construction site.
Okay.
You have immune cells acting like heavy machinery, tearing down infected areas, fighting off the invaders.
Yeah.
It is a messy, violent biological process.
It really is a war zone.
Yeah. Systemic inflammation is essentially the toxic dust from that construction site. It gets blown around, it breaches the velvet rope you mentioned, and it settles everywhere inside your head.
That's a great way to put it.
And when that inflammatory dust settles into the precise, delicate machinery of your neural pathways, well, that is the fog. It literally gums up the gears.
That is a highly effective way to conceptualize the pathology. The dust is actively interfering with how your neurons communicate. And the notes actually back this up with a fascinating article from the Harvard Medical Review.
What did they find?
They point out that it's not just systemic dust settling in the brain. The brain cells themselves, specifically the immune cells of the brain, which are called microglia, they can become chronically activated and inflamed.
Okay, the idea that my actual brain cells are physically inflamed sounds, frankly, terrifying.
It sounds alarming, I completely agree. But realizing that the brain is physically inflamed actually offers a massive silver lining here.
How so? Because inflamed brain does not sound like a silver lining to me.
Because physical inflammation is a tangible biological state, which means it is treatable.
Oh, I see.
If your brain fog was truly just an abstract, unstoppable curse of getting older, there'd be absolutely nothing you could do. You'd just have to accept it.
Right.
But if the problem is that your microglia are overactive and producing inflammatory cytokines, well, we know how to fight inflammation. It shifts the problem from the realm of the inevitable into the realm of the manageable. We have a distinct biological target.
Okay, that is incredibly empowering. The dust is in the gears, so we just need to learn how to clean the gears.
Exactly.
But looking at the sources, viral infections aren't the only thing kicking up dust. The notes pivot from external invaders to our own internal systems going haywire.
Yes.
Specifically, hormonal fluctuations, and the gut-brain axis.
Yes, the causes of brain fog are incredibly diverse. If we look at the endocrine system first, the research elaborates that fluctuations in hormones, particularly estrogen during menopause and thyroid hormones, can significantly impair cognitive clarity.
I really want to dig into the why here. We know hormones are chemical messengers, right?
Right.
They travel through the bloodstream and tell organs what to do. But how does a drop in estrogen or a misfiring thyroid specifically result in me forgetting my grocery list?
To understand that, we have to look at what those specific hormones do inside the brain. Let's take estrogen.
Okay.
Estrogen isn't just a reproductive hormone, it is a master metabolic regulator for the female brain.
Master metabolic regulator. What does that mean in practice?
It actually helps transport glucose, which is blood sugar, into the brain cells. Neurons are incredibly energy hungry. They need massive amounts of glucose to fire efficiently and form memories.
So if estrogen levels drop or fluctuate wildly, the brain cells literally aren't getting their food.
Exactly. It's like experiencing a rolling brownout in a major city.
Oh, wow.
The infrastructure, meaning the brain cells, they're still there, ready to work, but there just isn't enough power reaching them to run complex operations like memory retrieval or sustained focus.
That's incredible.
The brain's overall metabolic rate just slows down. And similarly, thyroid hormones dictate the baseline speed at which your cells operate.
Right, the thyroid controls metabolism everywhere.
Yes. So if your thyroid is underactive, every single system in your body slows down, including the speed at which your neurons process information.
So it is quite literally a loss of power in communication.
That makes so much sense, especially for listeners going through menopause or dealing with a thyroid condition who might feel like they are literally losing their minds.
Yes.
You aren't losing your mind. Your power grid is just experiencing fluctuations.
Precisely. And that brings us to the other major internal system highlighted in the notes, the gut-brain superhighway.
Okay, yes.
This is perhaps one of the most exciting areas of emerging research in the last decade. The source mentions a comprehensive study in gastroenterology, reporting that the state of your gut health directly, mechanically influences your brain function.
Okay, wait, I'm going to play devil's advocate here. If I'm the listener right now, I might be a little skeptical.
Hi.
Are we honestly saying that the fast food lunch I just ate is directly dictating my ability to write an articulate email this afternoon? In a very real, biological way, yes. We absolutely are saying that.
Because we hear the term gut-brain axis a lot, and people often visualize it like a digital fiber optic cable running straight from your stomach up to your head. Based on these notes, that's not quite right, is it?
Well, not exactly,
It's much more mechanical and chemical than that. Instead of a digital cable, the gut is more like a massive biological manufacturing plant.
That is a much more accurate analogy, yes.
Right, so the gut is a manufacturing plant, and the trillions of bacteria living down there, the microbiome, they are the factory workers.
Right.
And their job is to break down your food and manufacture the chemical fuel and neurotransmitters that the rest of your body, including your brain, runs on.
Yes. And a healthy, diverse microbiome produces incredibly beneficial compounds. For instance, when you eat fiber-rich foods, the good bacteria ferment that fiber and produce something called short-chain fatty acids, or SCFAs.
Okay, and why do we care about short-chain fatty acids when we're talking about brain fog?
Because SCFAs are absolutely crucial for maintaining that blood-brain barrier we discussed earlier.
The velvet rope?
Right. They essentially act as the mortar between the bricks of your blood-brain barrier, tightening the gaps so that toxins and inflammatory cytokines from the bloodstream literally cannot leak into the brain.
Oh, wow.
Furthermore, the gut produces a massive percentage of your body's neurotransmitters, like serotonin and dopamine.
Wait, I thought the brain produced those.
The brain produces some, but the gut is a massive factory for them. It ships them, or their precursors, up to the brain via the vagus nerve and the bloodstream.
So if we carry the manufacturing plant analogy forward, if you are eating a highly processed inflammatory diet, you are basically firing all the good, highly skilled factory workers and hiring a bunch of lazy, toxic workers.
Exactly.
They stop producing the mortar for your brain's protective wall, and instead they start manufacturing inflammatory byproducts. They ship tainted, low-quality fuel up to the brain.
That's exactly what happens.
And if the brain is running on tainted fuel with a leaking protective wall, of course you're going to experience cognitive fog.
Exactly. The gastroenterology study proposes that making specific dietary adjustments to improve the microbiota can significantly clear brain fog because you are quite literally changing the chemical data being sent up to the brain.
If you're listening to this and thinking, great, I already have brain fog and now I have to stress about my gut bacteria, don't panic. Because this actually introduces a really empowering concept from the notes, which is eating for your thoughts.
Yes, I love that phrase.
We are so conditioned to eat for specific visible outcomes, right? We eat to lose weight. We eat to lower our cholesterol. But this research strongly suggests we need a complete paradigm shift.
We really do.
We need to recognize that our dietary choices are directly, mechanically programming our cognitive clarity.
This raises an important question about how we view food. It is a profound shift in perspective. Your grocery list is the raw material for your mental software.
That's so powerful.
And, alongside poor gut health and hormonal fluctuations, the notes also explicitly list chronic stress and inadequate sleep as diverse causative factors contributing to this really complex symptom.
So if we pull all of this together, we have identified the culprits. We know exactly what is triggering the check engine light.
Right.
We have the viral aftermath kicking up inflammatory dust and breaching the velvet rope. We have hormonal power outages slowing down brain metabolism.
Mm-hmm.
And we have an unhealthy gut manufacturing plant shipping tainted fuel up the vagus nerve.
That's a perfect summary.
So the obvious question you're probably asking right now is, how do we sweep the brain clean? How do we fix the engine?
The source material is very clear on this. Because brain fog is a complex symptom with numerous underlying physiological causes, there is no single magic pill.
Right. There's no quick fix.
No. You cannot medicate your way out of a lifestyle problem. We have to apply a multifaceted, targeted strategy. The notes outline an eradication arsenal, as they call it, built on 3 foundational pillars, which are sleep, nutrition, and movement.
Let's tackle sleep first, because I feel like this is the one people cheat on the most.
Oh, absolutely.
The notes mention sleep hygiene emerging as a critical element. Gary Brecka even talks about hosting a sleep challenge because of how fundamentally important this is. But I want to push back on this a little bit.
Okay, sure.
We've all heard of those tech CEOs or finance guys who claim they run entirely on 4 hours of sleep a night, and they claim to have total, razor-sharp mental clarity. Is this research saying they're just running on borrowed time, or are there exceptions?
They're absolutely running on borrowed time.
Really?
Yes. Their perceived clarity is usually propped up by immense amounts of cortisol and caffeine, which is ultimately destroying their systemic health. The Sleep Research Society data noted in the sources is completely unequivocal. Adults who achieve 7 to 9 hours of regular sleep display significantly fewer cognitive issues.
Wow.
And the reason for this goes right back to the physical dust in the brain we were talking about.
All right, let's look at the mechanism. What is actually happening in the brain during hour 7 of sleep that isn't happening during hour 4?
This brings us to one of the most fascinating discoveries in modern neuroscience, the glymphatic system.
The glymphatic system, not lymphatic, glymphatic.
Correct. With a G. You can think of the glymphatic system as the brain's dedicated nightly plumbing and waste clearance network.
Okay.
During the day, as your neurons fire and process information, they naturally create metabolic waste products. One of these is a protein called amyloid beta. Furthermore, if you have any of that systemic inflammation we talked about, you have cytokines lingering in the neural tissue.
So the trash is just basically piling up in the office all day long.
Exactly. Now, when you enter deep, slow-wave sleep, something incredible happens. The glial cells in your brain, which are the support cells surrounding your neurons, they actually shrink in physical size by up to 60%.
Wait, the cells physically shrink?
Yes, they physically shrink, which widens the interstitial spaces between the brain cells. And once those spaces are open, cerebrospinal fluid rushes in and literally washes through the brain tissue.
Like a power washer.
Exactly like a power washer, sweeping away all that metabolic trash, the amyloid beta and the inflammatory cytokines, and flushing it out into the circulatory system to be disposed of.
That is unbelievable.
Yeah.
So sleep isn't just about resting your eyes. It is a highly active mechanical wash cycle for your brain tissue.
Yes, it's a deeply active process.
And tying it back to our earlier points, if systemic inflammation is construction dust, deep sleep is the cleaning crew coming in with power washers.
That's right.
So if you are that CEO sleeping 4 hours a night, you are cutting the cleaning crew's shift in half.
You're sending them home early.
Right. They don't have time to shrink the cells and run the wash cycle. So the toxic dust just accumulates day after day.
That is the precise biological reality. If you restrict sleep, you restrict the glymphatic clearance, the inflammation stays, the fog stays. Sleep hygiene, meaning consistent, quality sleep in a cool, dark room, is the absolute non-negotiable foundation of eradicating brain fog.
Okay, so pillar 1 is ensuring the nightly wash cycle runs to completion. What is pillar 2?
Nutrition, and specifically adopting an anti-inflammatory diet.
This connects perfectly back to the Harvard Medical Review findings about our brain cells, our microglia, being actively inflamed. If the brain is physically inflamed, we need to send in chemical firefighters.
Precisely.
Based on the notes, what does this nutritional arsenal actually look like?
Well, the notes reference a comprehensive 2023 article from Nutritional Neuroscience. It details that a diet abundant in omega-3 fatty acids, antioxidants, and probiotics has been proven to structurally enhance cognitive function and actively reduce the symptoms of brain fog.
I want to make sure we don't just list these things like a table of contents, because people hear omega-3s and antioxidants on every supplement commercial on television and their eyes just glaze over.
Right, it just sounds like marketing.
Yeah. Let's explain how they actually work, starting with omega-3 fatty acids. We know we get them from things like wild-caught salmon or high-quality fish oil. Why does my brain physically need them?
Omega-3s, specifically EPA and DHA, are the literal structural components of your cell membranes. Your brain is roughly 60% fat, and a massive portion of that needs to be DHA to keep the cell membranes fluid and flexible.
Okay.
But beyond just building the walls of the cell, they are potent signaling molecules. When your body breaks down omega-3s, it produces compounds called resolvins and protectins.
Resolvins, as in they resolve something.
Exactly. They actively resolve inflammation.
Oh.
They don't just passively wait for inflammation to die down, you know. They are the biochemical signals that tell your immune system the threat is gone, stop producing inflammatory cytokines, turn off the microglial attack. They are the chemical firefighters explicitly ordered to put out the fire in your brain tissue.
That is incredibly specific. So if you are eating a diet heavy in processed vegetable oils, which are omega-6s, which promote inflammation, you are essentially throwing gasoline on the fire.
Yes, you are.
But if you load up on omega-3s, you're sending in the resolvins to put it out.
Exactly.
Okay, what about antioxidants? I know they are heavily marketed. Eat your blueberries, drink your green tea. But based on these notes, they aren't just a buzzword. They are like a chemical cleanup crew for oxidative stress.
To understand oxidative stress, you have to look at it at the atomic level.
Okay.
When your cells undergo metabolic disruption, like what happens post-virus, as that Nature and Neuroscience study highlighted, they often produce free radicals.
Right.
A free radical is an unstable molecule that is missing an electron. Because it is unstable, it violently tears through your cellular tissue, attacking healthy cells to steal an electron. This causes massive damage to the neural tissue.
That's like a mugger running through the brain, smashing things to steal what it needs.
That's a great analogy. And an antioxidant is a molecule that has an extra electron to spare.
Oh.
It freely gives its extra electron to the free radical, completely neutralizing it before it can damage the brain cell. By flooding your system with antioxidants from brightly colored vegetables and fruits, you are disarming the free radicals before they can contribute to the cognitive fog.
And then the third nutritional component mentioned is probiotics, which ties right back into our gut manufacturing plant analogy.
Yes. Taking a high-quality probiotic and eating fermented foods is how you fire the toxic factory workers and hire the highly skilled ones.
Right.
You repopulate the gut with bacteria that will produce those short-chain fatty acids, repair the blood-brain barrier, and send clear, clean neurotransmitters up the vagus nerve.
Here's where it gets really interesting to me. We are talking about incredibly complex biological problems. We are talking about pathogen-induced neurological metabolic disruption.
It's a mouthful.
It is. We are talking about immune dysregulation, cytokine storms, and leaking blood-brain barriers. And the solution isn't some futuristic sci-fi medical procedure.
No, it's not.
The solution is the foundational basics. It is prioritizing deep sleep. It is eating salmon and broccoli. It is taking care of your gut. It is literally like doing basic maintenance on your car. You change the oil, you rotate the tires, you put in premium fuel, and miraculously, the check engine light turns off.
It is profound in its simplicity, honestly, but it does require discipline. Which brings us to the third and final pillar in our eradication arsenal, which is physical activity and movement.
The source notes specifically mention incorporating physical exercise and mind-body practices like yoga and meditation. Now, I understand how going for a run improves cardiovascular health. But mechanically speaking, how does taking 20 minutes to do a downward dog or sit in meditation actively clear the biological fog in my brain?
It comes down to a powerful mechanism called neuroplasticity. The notes cite a study published in the Journal of Brain Sciences demonstrating that regular engagement in physical activity, and particularly mind-body practices, dramatically increases neuroplasticity, which is crucial for fighting off cognitive impairment.
For the listener who might be visualizing their brain as a rigid, static organ, what exactly is neuroplasticity?
And neuroplasticity is the brain's remarkable ability to continuously reorganize itself by forming new neural connections throughout your life. It is the physical rewiring of the network.
Okay.
When your brain is damaged by inflammation or when neural pathways are gummed up by that toxic dust, neuroplasticity is what allows the brain to compensate, to adapt, and to build fresh, efficient routes for information to travel.
So if a major highway in the brain is shut down due to an inflammatory traffic jam, neuroplasticity is the brain's ability to just rapidly build a new, clean, high-speed detour around it.
That is exactly what it is doing, and exercise acts as the primary catalyst for this construction.
Really, just moving your body builds brain detours.
Yes. When you engage in physical movement, your muscles release proteins that cross into the brain and stimulate the production of something called BDNF. That stands for brain-derived neurotrophic factor.
BDNF. I've heard researchers refer to that as essentially miracle grow for the brain.
That is a very popular and accurate nickname. BDNF literally stimulates the growth of new synapses and the sprouting of new dendrites on your neurons. It physically grows the network.
That's amazing.
And the reason the notes specifically highlight mind-body practices like yoga and meditation is because they offer a dual benefit. They stimulate blood flow and neuroplasticity while simultaneously attacking another root cause of brain fog, which is chronic stress.
Let's talk about the stress component, because when we are stressed, our bodies pump out cortisol. And how does cortisol interact with our cognitive function?
In short bursts, cortisol is totally fine. It helps you escape a predator.
Right.
But chronic elevated cortisol, the kind you get from constantly checking stressful emails or worrying about finances or just surviving a modern high-stress lifestyle, is incredibly toxic to the brain.
Toxic how?
Chronic cortisol literally shrinks the hippocampus, which is the brain's primary center for learning and memory. It also drives further systemic inflammation.
So it's a vicious cycle. You are stressed, which releases cortisol, which shrinks your memory center and causes inflammation, which creates brain fog, which makes you more stressed because you can't remember your grocery list.
Precisely. It just feeds on itself. Meditation and yoga act as a physical brake pedal for the nervous system. Deep, controlled breathing physically signals the vagus nerve to shift the body out of sympathetic fight-or-flight mode and into parasympathetic rest and digest mode.
Wow.
It halts the cortisol production, lowers systemic inflammation, and allows that BDNF miracle grow to actually do its job of rebuilding the neural pathways.
When you lay it all out like that, it becomes so clear that none of these interventions exist in a vacuum. Everything is connected.
Completely connected.
If you engage in some mindful movement, you lower your cortisol. Lower cortisol lowers inflammation, which helps heal your gut. A healthy gut allows you to digest the omega-3s from your diet better. All of that combined helps you sleep deeper, which allows the lymphatic system to wash the brain clean. It is a compounding, cascading effect of biological healing.
If we connect this to the bigger picture, as the notes conclude, by deepening our understanding of these mechanisms and systematically applying these targeted lifestyle changes, we can effectively and permanently clear brain fog.
That's huge.
Each step you take towards improved physiological health not only sharpens your cognitive abilities in the moment, but structurally enhances your brain's long-term resilience. It is a multifaceted strategy for a complex but entirely solvable symptom.
Wow. We have covered an incredible amount of ground today, diving deep into the microscopic machinery of our own minds. Let's do a quick recap of the journey we just took.
Let's do it.
We started with this vague, annoying cloud that society tells us is just a normal, unavoidable part of getting older. We completely deconstructed that myth. We learned that brain fog is not a life sentence. It is a symptom. It is a biological check engine light.
Exactly. We looked at the mechanisms of viral infections, learning how systemic inflammation and cytokine storms act like toxic construction dust, breaching the blood-brain barrier and actively clouding the brain's delicate machinery.
Right.
We examined how hormonal power outages garble our internal chemical messengers, and we explored the gut-brain axis, realizing that poor dietary choices turn our digestive system into a faulty manufacturing plant that ships tainted fuel straight to our cognitive processing centers.
And most importantly, we mapped out the science-backed eradication arsenal. We talked about honoring the glymphatic wash cycle by getting 7 to 9 hours of consistent, deep sleep.
Non-negotiable.
We talked about sending in the chemical firefighters with an anti-inflammatory diet rich in omega-3s, antioxidants, and probiotics. And we discussed leveraging the miracle grow of BDNF and neuroplasticity through regular physical movement and stress-reducing practices.
What I really hope you, the listener, take away from this deep dive is a profound sense of empowerment.
Absolutely.
Recognizing brain fog as a biological mechanism rather than a personal failing changes everything. As Gary Brecka emphasizes in the source material, it's just science.
Yeah.
It is pure cause and effect. And because it is cause and effect, you have the tools right now to change the effect by simply changing the cause.
It is so incredibly true. If you are struggling with this, please hear us. You aren't losing your mind. You aren't just getting old. You are experiencing a tangible biological response that you have the absolute power to alter. Which leaves me with a final thought I want you to mull over as you go about the rest of your day.
Go for it.
If our daily mundane choices, like how many hours we choose to sleep tonight, whether we eat a probiotic-rich, colorful meal or a highly processed one for lunch, whether we take 20 minutes to stretch and breathe instead of scrolling through stressful news, if these seemingly small everyday choices are constantly mechanically altering our brain cell inflammation and actively rewiring our neural pathways, at what point do we realize we are actively writing the code for our own mental software every single day?
That's a great question.
How will you program your brain tomorrow? Because the next time you walk into a room and suddenly stop, staring blankly at the doorway, you will know exactly what that glitch in the matrix actually means. And more importantly, you'll know exactly how to pop the hood, clean the engine, and fix it.